Having faced backlash after backlash, ratio after ratio of downvotes on YouTube, The Odyssey is finally in theaters. And now Christopher Nolan is being declared a winner by the media. Supposedly, it's making a lot of money. Supposedly, it's selling a lot of tickets. And that means your favorite culture war warriors are in crisis. But what if we told you this movie isn't doing what they say it's doing, and we'll show it to you right now. Hello, folks. Hello, friends. Welcome back yet again, this time from beautiful Greenville, South Carolina. It's your humble pal Pro, hanging out at the Southeast Game Exchange. Before we dive in today, I want to say a huge thank you to people like Real Life Fake Wizard, Critical Drinker, Valiant Renegade, and so many more who put on a wonderful show. It was a great time yesterday getting to interview David Weiss, who is the composer of all the Donkey Kong games and the Rare games and all that kind of stuff, and sharing the panel with Fake Wizard and Critical Drinker. They're so gracious to have allowed me on the panel and to had such a wonderful conversation. Folks, if you're in the Greenville area, you got one more chance. We got a few hours left to go here on this Sunday. All right, let's dive into the box office. You smash that like button. And what do we have here, ladies and gentlemen? Well, let's see. Jeremy, D-Day Cobra, is posting this, and I'll tell you what's going on. He says, 2017, the hive mind attacks you if you dare criticize The Last Jedi, calls you racist and sexist. In 2026, the hive mind attacks you if you dare praise The Odyssey, calls you a shill and a traitor. Different sides of the political aisle, but the exact same mentality. And you can see that Jeremy has 407 responses, 596 likes. So this is, well, there's a lot of opinion about this movie, eh? And we knew that going into the film, that there would be plenty of opinions, and that's okay. Now, I want to let everybody know that I gave this film a 6.5. So I don't hate the film, and I don't love the film. I think it's meh. As I said in the review, I think it's 2 hours of slogging through kind of horror after horror in order to get to a John Wick film in the end. And I don't care for the fact that Christopher Nolan has retconned Odysseus to having been sort of a bad guy. I won't tell you now because it's not a spoiler video right now. But take a look at this out of variety, and you'll understand why people who are engaged in the culture war right now don't know what to do. Some folks are saying, well, I like the movie and you should too. And some folks are saying, how dare you? And everybody's scared. They want to get on the right side of the audience. Never fight with the audience, right? They want to make sure they're on the right side of history with content creation. But there's a reality here that's very different than what the media is saying. And I don't think people have recognized that yet. So let me explain it to you. First of all, from Variety, it says, by Jack Dunn, box office, The Odyssey has epic opening day with $51 million. Well, that's wonderful, eh? Phenomenal. Way to go, both Christopher Nolan and theater owners, right? Well, sure. But remember, folks, why do you come here? Because we keep you ahead of the culture curve. And we told you for weeks this movie was going to do phenomenally in terms of headlines and cash because it is so dependent upon IMAX. And I'll explain that in just a second, but this is inflating the numbers tremendously. And the question is going to be, as we move forward, looking at Forbes, by the way, now, the question is going to be, after the first few days of cinephiles and Christopher Nolan fans going to IMAXs, can it hold? And I would be so bold as to say, no, it can't actually, and I'll explain why. But first, let's give it more kudos, because we don't want to be negative for the sake of being negative. We want to be accurate for the sake of being accurate. Antonio Pequeño for Forbes writes, The Odyssey on track for $257 million globally, and says it's Nolan's biggest launch. Now, in terms of money and numbers, it is. But in terms of tickets sold, it's nowhere close. And you need to know that. In fact, in terms of tickets sold, The Odyssey is not even number one this year. It's not even number two this year. What am I talking about? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it turns out that IMAX tickets cost something like 50% more than regular tickets. And if you've been paying attention, you know that many of the ordinary theaters are flat out empty. This is being seen by the market as 100% something you go see at the IMAX. Now, what that means is that when we run the numbers and we say, okay, wait a minute, if this was not an IMAX heavy film, if people were paying the normal average ticket price instead of 50% inflated, and we're not talking about inflation yet, we're just talking about the difference in an IMAX ticket and a standard ticket. If people were paying the regular price, what would the weekend be globally? And when we run the numbers, well, it turns out that the actual money that would be made off of average ticket prices would be $192 million. Now, that's nothing to sneeze at, but it's also not what we're seeing right now in the headlines. You see, if we were to say, okay, there's a 1-to-1 domestic international split, that would also put this film at about $80 million as a domestic opening. So this movie is performing on par with an $80 million opening for a standard movie domestically in terms of tickets sold. But because it's playing in IMAX, ladies and gentlemen, because it's playing in IMAX and it's all about IMAX, the numbers are huge, even if the ticket sales are not huge. Are you following me? So what does this mean then? It may mean that it's incredibly front-loaded. We don't know that yet, and I have some ideas about where this is going to land. But we also need to understand this is not the moment where you say, oh, woke has won and Lupita Nyong'o and the artist formerly known as Paige have defeated the trolls, the Russian bots. That's not what's happening at all. And people need to wrap their heads around this. For you see, based on average ticket prices being equal, where would this movie land if it was not such an IMAX-dependent film? Where would it land? Well, let me go through the openings for you. Toy Story 5 opened domestically with normal ticket prices at $159. You know what? We'll just round it for them. $160 million. The Super Mario Galaxy movie came in number 2 with $131 million. Michael comes in number 3 at $97 million. And the Odyssey would have defeated, in fact, Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu, which came in at $81 million. Now, given that it would be number 4, that's not bad, That's not bad. But it's also not culturally defining. And what we're going to be watching for is, what does Spider-Man do in 2 weeks when it comes in? Does it wipe out Christopher Nolan? I want to go to OMB reviews. This is Odin, and we love Odin. We've had him on the show. He's a great guy. He's over there on FNT. Check him out. Here's what he has to say about the Odyssey. And I'm going to read these through for you, and I think we're going to be in agreement, and then you might be as well. And then you'll understand what's happening here. And consider this. If the second weekend comes and most people say, I didn't really, I didn't catch it in IMAX the first weekend. I don't want to go see it now. It's not that big of a deal. This movie could see a significant drop-off, and then the headlines will shift, but there's no need to panic or freak out. In fact, you know what? It's okay if the movie is a winner. I'm not trying to poo-poo it that way. I'm trying to say, I give it a 6.5. It's just meh. And whatever it does, don't think that this is changing the culture war, because it's not. The numbers are huge financially, but tickets sold, not so much. Here's what Odin says. He says, right now, the Odyssey is tracking towards $257 million globally for its opening weekend as the last update from Deadline. Correct. Looking at either inflation or, more importantly, ticket sales, this is not the biggest movie from Nolan. Correct. And the numbers are still not bad, and that's also correct. The majority of tickets sold for this movie are coming from IMAX and premium screens, which means the average ticket price is likely $20 to $25. That is also true. If the movie is able to go over $250 million globally in its opening weekend, it would actually mean it has a chance to hit $1 billion, since historically Nolan films can do more than 3x their global openings. Now, here's what I'm going to say about that, because I actually think this film has a harder task. It's not impossible, but this film has a harder task to get to the 3x. And the reason for that is because of Spider-Man. Now, before I show you the Spider-Man issue, you'll see at the bottom his fifth point, and I love these from Odin. The fifth point is, it's a $750 million break even, as we talked about in this morning's video. $750 million to break even. Now, that's not talking about an ROI. That's not talking about what does the studio want to receive back, because they need $850, $900 to say, yes, we got a 12% earn on investment. Now, why do they want that kind of percentage? Because they could just invest in the stock market and it would be way easier than investing in movies, right? They know what they can get back with good investments. They're hoping to exceed whatever it is they could do if they just took a giant chunk of money, in this case, something like $400 million. If they just took $400 million and just threw it into a bank somewhere with a guaranteed interest rate, they have to exceed that significantly to make it worthwhile to do all the difficult things that go into making a movie. Okay, so $750 is what they need. 3X would get them there. Can they do so? Well, here's the problem, folks. From Deadline, Anthony D'Alessandro. Spider-Man, Brand New Day swings onto tracking with $180 million plus, and that's domestic only. Will be the biggest opening year to date. Now, if I'm a theater owner in 2 weeks and I see this number, and I've had a bad year, I mean, listen, there have been some good movies, but overall, theater owners have been starved a little bit. And so if I'm a theater owner and I'm looking for how do I get my money this year? How do I stay in business? How do I keep the little light bulbs flashing over the marquee and the butter dripping on my popcorn? Well, if I want to stay in business because I think it's swell to be a cinema owner, I'm going to say, come on in, Spidey, come save the day. Hey, Spider-Man, you can be my hero. Because with a $180 million plus opening, if we think that it's going to be a one-to-one, domestic to international, and actually could be bigger, you're looking now at a $300 million plus clearance easily for the global opening on this movie. And if I'm a cinema owner, I want to be a part of that. I want to give every screen I can to this. I want to give the web warrior a chance to be a menace to society and drive every person into the leisure of seeing a film in my theater. So I think that Spider-Man presents a problem for Christopher Nolan. And why do I think so? Why would I say so, ladies and gentlemen? By the way, here's the numbers from just Friday. Crazy Thursday, Friday numbers, right? We'll have these updated in just maybe an hour. Why would I push Nolan out? Why would I say, 3X might be difficult? Because Spider-Man is going to gobble up every single screen they can give it. This is why the second weekend matters more than ever for this film. And this is why you shouldn't freak out. And I'm not telling you should freak out about the culture war whatsoever. What I'm telling you is you should not freak out about these headlines this weekend, because the second weekend is where we find out what this movie is really going to do. Okay. The second weekend matters because the second weekend will determine how many PLFs, premium large format screens, are going to go to Spider-Man. Because if the Odyssey has a great hold in the second weekend, cinema owners will say, okay, this should continue to be on. However, if it has a significant drop-off, they're going to say, Spider-Man, come save us. The Odyssey is starting to falter. We need you. And do you see it's kind of an exponential, it kind of snowballs in either direction, by the way. So, do I think that the Odyssey is a failure? I think as a piece of art and as a piece of battling with the modern message, I think it's meh. And I've said that. Financially, different story. And financially, what do I think it's going to do? Well, financially, I think this is on track to make a small profit, because remember, it needs $750 million to clear. But I don't know that I see this doing much higher, depending on Spider-Man. And by the way, if Spider-Man's a bad movie, we'll reassess all that, eh? So what's the legacy of the Odyssey then? Because I don't think people will be watching this very much in 5 years from now. I don't think it's going to stand out as one of those great cinematic moments. I think it's being presented that way. I think the narrative is playing out that way. And I think I see some conservative voices out there, not Jeremy, not any of the legit guys, but I see some folks out there who they're even getting hit on X with labels that say that they're a paid shill for the movie when they're praising it. Maybe they are. Very messy. So what will the legacy be for the Odyssey? After backlash and ratio and stunt casting, and awards, it's going to get every award they can give it, even though it should go to Project Hail Mary and Michael. So what will be the legacy of the Odyssey? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that the legacy will be that Hollywood is going to learn they should put movies in the IMAX as much as possible. Because if Hollywood puts movies in the IMAX as much as possible, and if they shoot it with IMAX, which is difficult, but if they do so with their blockbusters, even if they would be the 4th biggest movie of the year, even if they would barely beat Mandalorian and Grogu, which was a disappointment, right? Think about the framing of this. Mando is a disappointment with its tickets sold. Odyssey is the biggest winner ever, and Christopher Nolan is king. Jon Favreau has pie in his face. Dave Filoni can't stay on track at Lucasfilm and might get fired. Christopher Nolan is the greatest director since Spielberg. The disparity is huge. The ticket sales are the same. And yet, how did this happen? IMAX. Shoving this into IMAX gave them a 50% increase in the total box office for the headlines. And that's the way, by the way, because it all comes down to money, that's the way this will make money, is IMAX. So if Hollywood figures out we are waning in those who care to come see our fare, but we can still make a profit with IMAX, then they should do that. And that may be the genius of Christopher Nolan, really. Maybe this is what the legacy is for the Odyssey. It's not that it's a great movie, although some people think it is, and some people hate it. It's a divisive film. It's not that it puts some sort of stake in the heart of the YouTube trolls who dared take on the culture war. No, this has no impact on that whatsoever, other than the way it's being perceived. But the reality is, Christopher Nolan may have cracked the code as to how to make blockbusters work again. And that's putting them on ginormous screens for crazy costs and letting the whales carry the day for Hollyweird. Folks, that is the video for today. Thank you for joining us. What a pleasure, what an honor, what a great thing to have you aboard. Hope you had a great time, really and truly. Folks, if you did, consider clicking that like button, share, subscribe, drop a comment down below, let us know your thoughts. And until the next time, we have the pleasure, the privilege, the honor, and the responsibility of spending time together. Keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.
Hey there, I'm Wilton. I've taken on a new role at the sunny Florida travel agency. If you use my travel agency, I promise with my little troll heart that you and me can hang out at the Fountain of Nations at Epcot at Walt Disney World. I can also hook you up on a good deal for water at the parks too. Send me your Walmart gift card codes now. Hey, Floral. What are you doing here? I'm trying to do an advert.
Couple things. This is quite literally a scam that you're trying to run on WDW Pro's channel.
What?
Folks, look. This is a green screen, and Wilton stole a B-roll from Pro.
Wait, are
Wilton
you
lives
for
in
real
Canada
right now?
and doesn't even have a passport.
Have I ever scammed anyone that you know of before?
Yep.
There's not a Fountain of Nations anymore.
Details are for the weak, Jose. Besides, I've got a bunch of pros audience that still think that Lauren has hair.
Oh.
We got this.